And good afternoon, everyone. Welcome again to What You Need to Know with Dr. Philip Keiser. I know it says COVID-19 on there. We'll be now, as we're kind of morphing with this show to just more of healthcare issues, we'll be talking about a whole slew of things. It feels like it's been forever, though. It's been only a couple of weeks. How's it been going for you, Dr. Keiser?
Oh, it's been going okay. Things are quieting down, and we're getting into a real routine and rhythm of things. So all in all, it's been going well.
One of the things that let's still talk about COVID-19 as we get into this is right off the bat is the Delta variant. We're hearing a whole lot about that, and more. It's becoming, in many places, the dominant variant of COVID-19 out there. Can you explain to folks what makes this different from what we had the UK variant and the India variant and the like? Can you explain the difference of what we're seeing here with this?
Yeah, so first of all, there's a change in nomenclature and what we call them, and this is from the WHO. So the Delta variant is the Indian variant, and that variant has some mutations in it, which makes it much easier for the virus to get inside cells, both in the nose and in the lungs. And so because of that, it's more transmissible. It's about 1.6 times more likely to get it than the UK variant, which is about 1.3 times more than the wild type. So you put that all together, it's almost twice as infectious as the original COVID that came through. That's the bad news. The good news is that it's not clear whether it causes worse disease. There are a lot of people that were concerned about that they thought people might be getting sicker, but so far there's not any hard evidence that that's happening. And the really good news is that both the Pfizer vaccine and the Moderna vaccine cover it very well. So if you've been vaccinated with those two vaccines, you really don't have much to worry about. Jury's still out on the Johnson & Johnson vaccine. Some of the vaccines we're seeing overseas that have been used overseas are not as effective, particularly the Chinese vaccine. Really, they're having almost 50% failure rate in sub-Saharan Africa with this particular variant. So it's something definitely to keep an eye on, but so far so good. We're doing okay. We have it here. We've documented several cases, and we've already changed some of our protocols and how we treat people to adapt to that. So all in all, I think we're in a good spot. And the lights just went out.
Yeah. We forgot to have someone set up. For those of you just joining us, we're with Dr. Philip Keiser, the local health authority for Galveston County. I'll let you wave as I come back on screen here to see if we get it going here.
There we go.
There it goes. Yeah. And it's like we had to. And so he's in his office at the health district, Galveston County Health District. Unless you're moving around a lot, the lights as an energy saver will come on. Any case, so we had some fun with that the last time we were on. You were talking about the effectiveness of the Pfizer and Moderna RNA vaccines with dealing with this Delta variant and others in there. Just, when we say effective, I think we need to kind of clarify to folks because there's always kind of this misnomenclature of people hear vaccine, that means no way I'm getting it if I've been vaccinated. That's not necessarily true. No one's ever really claimed that. It protects you better, and it's effective up to a point, but there's going to be what they call breakthroughs. Mm-hmm. And if you do have a breakthrough, you still have the possibility of getting sick, but maybe not as severe. Can you explain that with the different areas?
Yeah, so what the vaccines do is they help your body fight off the infection. And in most cases, it means that you don't get infected at all. It just stops it at the gates. But sometimes it breaks through and sometimes it gets into your body. And then the immune system doesn't stop there. The immune system is quite complex and robust. And so it continues to fight it. So in most people that even get it, and it's less than 10% of the people who've been vaccinated actually get COVID, they have very mild symptoms, if any, having symptoms at all. And most importantly, they don't spread it to other people. And that's why the CDC relaxed the masking rule, saying, if you've been vaccinated, you don't have to worry about it. One, because even if you get the virus, you're not likely to get sick, and you're not likely to give it to someone else. And I think that was the real the real key part of it. So so these vaccines have turned out to be extremely robust, and the news just keeps getting better every day. Today there was a report out in Nature where they looked at about 15 people looking at their long-term immunity. Now, granted, it's a small number of people, but they were able to demonstrate that there are cells that have memory against COVID for up to a year afterwards. And so this is really, really important, because what this means is that we may not need to get a booster shot, and we may have immunity that lasts for a year or years, or some people are even saying lifelong. So everything that we've seen with this vaccines as it goes along, it's always turning out to be the best case scenario. So we're very, very fortunate to have these tools available.
And we're going to talk more about those booster shots and more when we come back after this word from the Galveston County Health District.
Hi, I'm Christina Garcia. I'm the Patient Services Manager at Coastal Health and Wellness. I want all Galveston County residents to know that the open enrollment for the healthcare insurance marketplace is now. At Coastal Health and Wellness, we understand the importance of having access to high quality health care. And we understand that the application process can sometimes be stressful, trying to figure out which plan is best for you and your family. So we have certified application counselors that are waiting to walk you through the process. There are 4 categories of plans to choose from, and our counselors will help you through the process. All the plans will cover essential health benefits, pre-existing conditions, as well as preventive care. So what do you need to know, Galveston County residents? The time to act is now. If you need assistance or if you have questions, call us. At Coastal Health and Wellness, we're here to help you.
And welcome back to What You Need to Know with Dr. Philip Keiser. And you were talking about on the vaccines now, that the long-term effects of those vaccines, particularly the RNA vaccines. And you were talking about that, about the immunity and how long they last. Do we need boosters? Let's delve into that a little bit, because because one of the things we were thinking was, okay, about the time fall rolled around, we were going to be talking about boosters of these vaccines. What's being shown, particularly the RNA vaccines, and then we'll talk about the others as well right after that.
Yeah. So so what's being shown is that when we look at a variety of different factors, like people who have been vaccinated, and we're almost a year into the first people being vaccinated now. The first people got vaccinated in July as part of the studies. They still have immunity, and that, I think, is a very, very important thing. In addition to that, so when you test them, they actually have the immunity in their blood. But also, if you look at how many of those people are getting infected and getting sick, the vaccine numbers are still holding up. It's working very, very well. So those are 2 very important things. The second thing is that people are now studying the whole immune response much more rigorously than they were able to initially. And what's being shown is that there are certain types of cells that we call memory cells. And these are cells that remember what you've been exposed to, and then can produce antibodies, and can also signal your immune system to respond to if you get an infection. And typically with other vaccines and other viruses, that once you've been infected or you had a vaccine, 4 months later, you don't have much of those cells left. And there's a very strong response in people that got the COVID vaccine even a year later. So, everything is lining up in the sense that once you get vaccinated, it seems like the vaccine continues to work. How long is it going to work? We honestly don't know. There are studies ongoing that are asking that question. 1, how long is it going to work? And 2, is there benefit from getting a second vaccine? And so there are things where, say, for example, if you got the Pfizer vaccine, you get a booster for the Pfizer vaccine. But there's also mixing and matching vaccine studies where, okay, you got Moderna, now we're going to give you Pfizer, or you got the J&J vaccine, now we're going to give you Pfizer, and we're going to see what happens with that. So the vaccines that we have seem to be working very well. And really the mRNA vaccines, so the Pfizer and the Moderna, are the ones that seem to be working the best. Most of the other vaccines use what's called an adenovirus vector, meaning that they use a different virus, and you stick little pieces of the COVID virus in there, and then you give it to people. And that virus then infects you but doesn't cause disease, and it gives you immunity through that. Well, what we're seeing is that particularly as these variants are coming out, that some of these are not as good against those variants. And so there's concern that, depending on what vaccine you got, you may need to get a booster shot. So, don't be surprised if, a few months from now, we're telling everybody, hey, we're seeing some variants in the J&J vaccine, you may need a booster. Not yet, not today, but it may happen in the future, but time will tell. Certainly, we're seeing overseas in sub-Saharan Africa, some of those vaccines are not working very well. And this is the Chinese vaccine, the AstraZeneca vaccine, the Oxford vaccine. But the vaccines that we have here are holding up very, very well.
Well, that brings me to the question I asked you before we came on the air, though, too, is that, okay, so let's say the recommendation is for if you have an RNA vaccine, you're not going to need a booster. What if I just feel like I want one? And you gave the same chuckle to me when I asked you that before. Because I've been having that talk, for several months now.
I wouldn't argue with you too much over that one. We have plenty of vaccine. That's the first thing. And so far, it seems like getting that third vaccine is not harmful. I wouldn't recommend it to people. I wouldn't tell people you have to do it. But there are people who maybe should. I have a colleague of mine who works overseas. He got vaccinated with the AstraZeneca vaccine, and now the Delta variant in Africa where he's working is running rampant. He's coming back to the United States for a visit for other reasons, and he said, "Can I get a Pfizer vaccine even though I've been fully vaccinated?" It's like, of course, sure, we'll do that for you. And he's going to go back to a place where the vaccine he has probably doesn't work that well. So, there are scenarios where we're actually going ahead and doing that, and it may happen more often in the future. I think it's something on an individual basis, and you have to talk to your doctors about it. But it's not. We're not in a situation where we were before, where we didn't have enough vaccine to go around. And 4 months ago, if you'd asked that, I'd have said no, and that would have been the end of it. But we have plenty of vaccine.
It's one thing, even if you want to do it, though. It's finding someone, as I told you, if I went to UTMB Health, where I've gotten mine before, they'll have in the system probably say, nah.
I'm not going to speak for them. I don't know.
I know. I'm just saying, I'm just saying, but anyways, it is a question I've been asked a lot about. Well, even if they say I don't want a booster, I just was so much information out there and information being right one day and then wrong the next day, or at least a change in that. And that's become more of a communication play than anything else of what, being able to do that. But at this point, you're saying if you have an RNA vaccine, don't need to worry about a booster for right now.
Yeah, and every day there's more information coming out saying that. So I'm feeling pretty good about it. I got to admit, if in May I was getting worried because I'm thinking, well, in 2 months I'm 6 months into this. Am I going to be okay? And I think a lot of us are like that, right? That's normal to think that way. But as we sit here today, I'm feeling pretty good about it.
Obviously, one of the big demand questions we always get every single show, and finally it's around the corner here. How about cruises? Carnival set to set sail Saturday on its first cruise out of Galveston since this all began. We saw another cruise line that actually set sail yesterday. First from U.S. shores since the pandemic. And at this point, you've had a look at the plans for those coming out of the cruise ships coming out of Galveston. You confident in how things are going to go?
As confident as I can be, So Carnival has really worked very hard to get all their crews vaccinated, which I think is very, very important. Because you think about it, for ships coming in and out, who's most likely to spread it to other people? It's going to be the crews. And so even if someone happens to get on board and has COVID, it's not likely then they're going to give it to the crew, who can then give it to subsequent cruisers. So that's a very important thing. The other thing they're doing is that they are making people get vaccinated before they come on board, and unless you're under 12. And so when you put all that together, plus with all their screening criteria, I think it's about as tight as anybody can make it. Now, we have heard reports from other ships that have sailed out of non-U.S. ports of having small numbers of people who test positive for COVID. Most of them are done on some sort of screening, and most of those people that they find are not symptomatic. So, so far it hasn't blown up. And it's kind of what you would expect if you had most people vaccinated, is that even if you do get some things that slip through, they're not going to be people that are going to be very sick, and you're not going to see widespread infection throughout the ship. So, time will tell. One thing we know about cruise ships is that they can be real incubators for infectious diseases, and we knew this long before COVID, with influenza and with norovirus and other things. But I think that they are committed to making this work, and it's about as good as anybody can do it, as far as we can tell right now.
What is, as you've looked at these planes, what is the plan for cruise ship goes out and there's an infection? So let's say a family, have somehow tested positive, they've gotten a test back.
Right. So first thing is they get isolated. So they basically get locked in their cabin for the rest of their cruise, and they'll have their meals brought to them. Someone will knock on the door and run away, and just really minimize exposure. The cruise lines will actually do contact tracing on board the ship, and they will determine among the people that they've had contact with who's had significant contact and who's likely to be someone who might be infected, who back on shore we would be concerned about, and we would tell to quarantine, and they will quarantine those people too. And then those people will be tested, and then once the ship comes back to port, before they even get back into port, we will get a list of names and the people of who is infected, who's at risk of being infected, and who's not. And if there's anybody that's really sick and needs to be transported to the hospital, what we'll do is we'll arrange for transport. Well, actually, it will be arranged automatically for them to be transported to the hospital as soon as the ship hits port. So, there's that part of it already done. Now, the next thing is what do we do with these folks? And a lot of it really depends on a couple issues. One is, how sick are they, if they're sick at all? And then the next question is, how did they get here? And so if, say, a family is positive and there are members that are not feeling well, so what we do is we'll take everybody off the ship in order. Those that are low risk, they come off the ship. They get told, look, there's somebody with COVID here. You need to be worried, be concerned about it. Go home, talk to your doctor, get tested in 5-7 days. Okay, fine, they're good. The people that are exposed, we then bring them off the ship. And we have ability to test them actually on board the ship with rapid tests to see whether they're positive. And assuming they're negative, then those people again will be allowed to go their own way, unless they're really, really high risk. For the people that are positive, if they're not sick and they're able to go home and see their doctor when they can get home. If they drove here, again, we'll let them go. Okay. But if they didn't drive, if they flew, or they took a bus or a train, we can't let them get on the train. So what we'll have to do is we'll quarantine them here. And the cruise lines have already made arrangements for housing for people if in the event that happens. I suspect that's going to happen very rarely. I really do. We're just going to have to wait and see what happens. But you think about it, 95% of the passengers are vaccinated. What's the real risk if they end up having COVID? Well, it's really pretty low. And I think what we'll end up doing is we may end up inconveniencing a few people for a short period of time. And I hope that's all it ends up being. But that's the general plan, and that's the approach that we're going to take.
And I should point out, for example, I'm going out on the 15th. Actually, I won't be going out this weekend, but going out on the 15th. And this is what Carnival's told us, is that if you're vaccinated, you're fine on board. There's not going to be any restrictions in your movement or masking requirements, except for in the terminal.
Yes.
There will be masking when you're checking in. So you have to wear face covering there.
Right.
And then when you get on board, why the difference between the two at that point? Why inside the terminal, and why does it change when you get on the boat?
It changes because what's happening is that they're screening you as you go through. So, in addition to all of the procedures that you do when you get on board the ship, looking at your passport and, travel documents and getting your credit card and things like that, they're also going to be asking you screening questions. And even if you are vaccinated, they're going to ask you about symptoms of COVID. And it's really important you answer honestly. And if you have any symptoms that are suggestive of COVID, they have a place to test you right then and there. And if you're positive, they're not going to let you on. And so that's the reason why I'm wearing the mask initially, because it's not clear. And they also haven't really had a good chance to vet everybody to make sure that they truly are vaccinated. So, they're going to be asking to see those vaccine cards, and they want to see that card. If there's you have additional documentation, such as a test result or a letter from your doctor, that's all welcome as well. In fact, they've even said to us, the more documentation people bring, the more confident they are in those documents. There are people out there that are selling fake vaccine cards. And if you want, you could probably buy one online. I shouldn't be telling people this, but there are people out there, but that doesn't do any good to do that, because you're just putting yourself and everybody else at risk.
Well, in Kim Solu, forgive me, Kim, if I'm mispronouncing that. That's one of the questions. Yeah, what about all these false immunization records going around? We've seen them where the cards, they look like the real thing.
Yeah,
and also too, we have seen plenty of reports where folks have taken when they were so proud they got their CDC card, so they took a photo of it, posted it online, and you pull that image and doctor it up with a name or something like that, and it changes it up a little bit.
Yeah.
One of the things is, the cruise line told us that it wasn't required, but we have our handy MyChart that for our purposes we'll be bringing you on board, that has the information in it that says, all right, yes, they've been immunized, and just to be unsafe, doing a test right beforehand. Just to have that. And so that's one of the things that'll be going on for the cruise line. So we'll see how it goes this weekend when folks go out. Question 2 from Dolores Howard of how about vaccines for children? Where does that stand right now as the clinical trials are underway?
So 12 and up, still approved by the FDA. There was the scare about myocarditis particularly in young men, and after examining it, it was mostly very mild cases and something that could be handled with just ibuprofen or Motrin. And so the conclusion of the advisory panel was that the risk of COVID, even in young people, far outweighs the risk of getting a reaction from the vaccine. So keep in mind, even though this is a rare vaccine event, there's also rare events of people developing heart inflammation, of children doing that as well. So in the net, the vaccine seems to work better. The studies are still ongoing from 5 to 12-year-olds. We're hopeful that that will come out sometime before September. That's kind of a national goal. Of course, in Texas, we start schools earlier than that, so we may not have the go-ahead to do that, vaccinations in the younger children prior to school starting. But as soon as we get that go-ahead, we're going to do it.
Let's switch subjects a little bit now. As I said, the show will deal with COVID-19 issues still at the top, but we're going to also morph into other issues to talk about. The hotter of which is something that we didn't hear a lot about this last year, but West Nile is back. And because last summer we were dealing with COVID-related issues so much, but we got our first, and we should point out, not in a human case. This is actual mosquitoes, skeeters, tested positive for West Nile. And how concerned should we be? This was, if I remember right, this was kind of the northeastern part of Galveston County that these mosquitoes were found to have West Nile. We found it. Is any update from what we got the update last week from the health district?
Yeah, no more mosquitoes that have been positive. The other ways that we monitor for West Nile is for what are called sentinel chickens. That always cracked me up. But believe it or not, there are people all over the region who keep chickens, and they get bled every now and then to see whether they've developed antibodies to West Nile and other infections. And so we haven't seen that as well. We haven't seen it in human beings. But I think it's just a reminder again that, as we go out into the summer months, and particularly now that we're having all this rain, we're going to see lots of mosquitoes. Okay. And as we see lots of mosquitoes, if you're going out, particularly in the evening times, you need to be putting on mosquito repellent, wearing long sleeves if you can. I mean, granted, it's pretty hot. But do the things that you need to do to keep from getting any mosquito-borne infections. We have not had an outbreak in West Nile in our region for quite a while. When I lived in Dallas, we used to see it quite a bit. There's something about Dallas that attracts viruses more than it does down here. But so be careful. Wear mosquito repellent. Wear long sleeves and long pants if you're going to be sitting out in the backyard as it gets cooler in the evening.
Yeah, and right off the bat, obviously, as it comes up. So now we should hide under our beds for mosquitoes. That's been something in Texas forever. The mosquitoes here are pretty vicious.
Yeah. No, you shouldn't hide under the bed. You should look under the bed to see if you have mosquitoes and spray them.
Yeah, and then spray for them.
I'm being very serious here, because the mosquitoes that spread infections, they're often indoors, and they hide under beds and under furniture and things, and then they.
I had no idea.
Yeah. And so
that's the first I've ever heard that before.
Yeah. So look under the bed for mosquitoes and kill them. And besides, who wants to have a mosquito buzzing around you while you're trying to sleep?
So sorry about that, Lisa. We knew it was kind of tongue in cheek on your part, but turns out do check under your bed before you go diving under that there as well. There's the sprays again. So what do you recommend? I know some folks like to say, make sure it has DEET in it. There are some folks that are concerned about that.
Right.
But there's some natural repellents that are out there as well. Which ones, do you recommend folks have?
Yeah, well, the thing that this is something my brother turned me on to. It's something called a thermocell, which has a mosquito repellent in it. It's a little thing that you heat up, and it puts out this sort of aromatic smell that keeps mosquitoes away. And if you're sitting outside, it gives you like a 10-foot barrier around you, and it keeps you from getting mosquitoes. And hunters use it a lot. And,
I just discovered that thing this weekend. Yeah. You can get it at Academy. You get it in the little handheld version, or you can get the little cube thing.
That's right.
And at first I said, okay, this is going to be like the citronella candles all over again type of thing, where I feel like I'm having a seance because I got all these candles surrounding me. But I will say that we could tell the difference with just that small device.
Yep.
You click it up. It's got a little cartridge in it, so it's like I call it lighting it up, and it's the heat element. It worked. I will give that a high recommendation, and that was wonderful, and we didn't all smell like off or cutter or whatever deal, and worked really well, and for a good distance around there. We could tell the difference when because we had to look for the little orange light inside.
Right.
If that was out, that means it was out. And when I noticed I got bit a couple of times, and I looked it up, sure enough, the light was out. Yeah. So we had to reload the cartridge and go again. But I will say, in fact, I said I was going to go out and get one. Obviously, as we're talking now, more rain coming down, so it's going to be something else. When we talk about mosquitoes, also at the same time, we talk about Zika. Yeah. That was the big topic a couple of years ago. How concerned should we be about Zika? Are we better prepared for it now? Is there anything to combat against it except getting rid of mosquitoes?
The best protection we have about Zika is that it infected everybody in South America, and so there weren't enough people traveling the United States to bring it to us, and so that are susceptible to Zika to bring it to us. So we had a few outbreaks, including some in Texas, but it never got past that. And I think from a public health point of view, we're really actually very well poised to handle a Zika outbreak if it occurs. And basically, what we would do is exactly what we did with COVID, except really focus. You find out where the outbreak is, and you draw concentric circles around those people. You isolate those people. You go through and clean out all the pooled water, and spray for mosquitoes and get rid of all the mosquitoes. And that seems to be a very good way of preventing it. The big concern with Zika was in pregnant women, and that it really did affect some of these fetuses and unborn children. And so I think we're prepared for it. We're not concerned about it. We don't have any Zika signals in the United States or even in the Caribbean, which is where it was before. So so far so good.
And again, explain is there anything, if you do get sick with Zika, how to combat that? Is it just
Not really.
antibiotics, and that's pretty much it right now.
Yeah,
Right?
just kind of sit and wait it out. So people get a rash. The first case of Zika I saw, we actually diagnosed over the iPhone. It was one of our students that was in the Dominican Republic, and she said, "I've had a fever and I got this rash, and the doctors don't know what's wrong with me." And we looked at it and we go, "This looks like Zika to us," and sure enough, it was. And so it's pretty characteristic. But for most people, it just goes through and does not cause any serious illness. It's really with the pregnant women that is the real concern. And during the time that we thought it was going to come and hit the United States, there were some women that were going up north to get away from it. We don't have a good vaccine against Zika at this point, and basically all we can do is wait it out and try to contain it if it does hit our shores.
And then the other thing we have to deal with outside of the mosquitoes is it's hot. Yeah. Just now, not Portland hot, I should point out,
right?
113 degrees out there. But actually, I will say this past weekend, thanks to the rain, where we were out of town, but it was cool. We're still in Texas, so it's going to be hot no matter what. But it was, I guess you call it a comfortable heat, as best as we could. But a lot of folks may not realize this, but the biggest weather-related death that happens out there is heat exposure. Right. And folks get overheated. Again, it's basic tips on this, but I just wanted you a chance to talk about that because we're getting to that time of the year. July 4th, a lot of folks are going to be out there having a good time.
Yeah.
What should folks need to do to protect themselves?
Well, you need to cover up. That's the first thing. It's kind of counterintuitive, but if you're going to be out in the sun, actually, once you get above your normal body temperature, it's not a matter of letting the heat get out. You want to keep the heat from getting in. So, I don't know if you've ever seen guys doing lawn or doing other sort of outdoor work in really hot temperatures. They're wearing long sleeves, they're wearing stuff around their face, they're wearing big hats. And so they're protecting themselves from the sun. That's the number one thing. And the number two thing is hydration. You got to be drinking a lot. And if you're outside for any period of time, you should be drinking enough that you're peeing every hour or so. And that should be your measure. And then the third thing is that if you're outside and you're feeling hot and you don't feel good, go inside, cool down, drink lots of water. These are all very, very basic things, but you'd be surprised how many people don't do them. And then they'll find themselves in situations where they let it go too far. So, you need to pay attention to the weather reports. You need to pay attention to these heat indexes and take appropriate action. The nice thing, as opposed to being in the Northwest, we have air conditioning here.
Yeah.
And we got plenty of air conditioning. So there's no reason why this should happen to anybody unless we have some sort of catastrophic failure of the electrical grid.
And for the folks in the Northwest and along the Canadian border right now, it's one of those things too. This is kind of the reverse. Well, not reverse so much. This is a similar situation what we had to deal with in February with the Arctic freeze. Yeah. A lot of folks say, "Oh, look at these Texans don't know how to deal with the cold." Let's flip it around some. That right. It is, folks. Your lifestyle is not geared for this. This is an arid climate up north. You normally don't have. There are a lot of people. I was seeing a study where as many as 60% of the residential locations in Portland don't have air conditioning.
That's right.
Of any sort, not even a window unit.
Right. My kids used to live in Seattle, and it was there's no reason to have air conditioning because the hottest day of the year might be 80 degrees, and let me tell you, up there in 80-degree weather, it's wonderful. It's you're just so happy to be there. But if it gets hotter, there's nothing there to keep you cool.
For folks too, I hear this because we saw some fans being handed out and the like, and you hear this a lot too. If it's super hot and you've got a box fan side, is that really helping any? If it's just recirculating the hot air in there or inside your house, what should you be doing to set it up properly?
Right. So, those do help. Probably the best thing to do if you're and this sounds crazy. Well, first of all, if you can, moving air helps keep you cool. And the way our bodies cool itself off is we sweat, and then the air going by causes that sweat to evaporate, and then that helps cool you down. Which is why it's very, very important to keep drinking, because when you get very hot, and you get to a point where you get dehydrated, you stop sweating. right? Because there's not enough fluid inside you to make you sweat. And then you've lost your thermoregulability. And so that's when people get extremely, extremely hot. So, having a fan can be very, very helpful. Having some cold water, having some ice, and just there's nothing like when it's really hot to just stick your feet in some really cold water. That'll help cool you off.
Yeah, that's for sure.
But keep the drinking, keep out of the sun. Those are the really key things.
And you had said it earlier, drink enough that you're peeing every hour.
Yep. That's a good rule of thumb.
A lot of folks, and I was guilty of this Juneteenth Saturday, I thought I was hydrating well.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I was drinking constantly. I had my ice chest in the vehicle while I was covering activities on Galveston for Juneteenth, and thought I was doing really well. And at one point, though, because I've been standing on asphalt in the heat coming up even under a tent, and kept hydrating, and I was, after a while, going, wow, I'm getting a little lightheaded.
Yeah.
And I said, you know what? It's been a couple hours since I had to go to the bathroom.
Yeah.
And I said, okay. And I was trying to remember that it's a simple piece of advice that you told me years ago, and I've tried to keep up with it over the time. But it's real simple. That's your kind of ratio on keeping hydrated the whole time. But the best thing was I was able to get back to my truck, get the air conditioner on full speed, and just sat there for a while and just chilled out, literally, during that time. But it is dangerous. You got to watch out for that. And particularly, too, we know folks are going to be hitting the beach this weekend. They know they're going to be drinking. Don't forget, when you're drinking, you get dehydrated. And you got to make sure that doesn't count as hydration.
Right. So alcohol and sodas with caffeine in them don't count. Or even iced tea with because it's got caffeine in it, and that makes you pee more, which dehydrates you. So it's water or fruit juice or Gatorade, anything that's not going to dry you out is what you should be drinking.
And we're going to revisit now our regular viewer, Stan Van Horn, who's usually has a comment for us. He's studying for finals, so he came in a little bit late, but I thought we'd go back talking about the Delta strain. With a lot of folks, that was the India strain. Now we're giving it basically Greek names on these different strains, and the vaccine efficiency in COVID-19. Well, I wanted you to revisit that quickly before we wrap up today.
Sure. So the Delta strain, for the vaccines that we have, the Moderna and the Pfizer, it seems to be very effective against that strain, and so there's not a lot of worries there. For the J&J, it's not clear yet, but there is some concern that it may not be as potent, and certainly some of the vaccines that have been used overseas, but particularly like the Chinese vaccine called the Sino vaccine, is not been very effective. It's failing in about 50% of the cases, and so we're seeing huge waves going through Africa because it was the Chinese vaccine that was being used a lot on that continent. So for us, I think we're in a good spot. We've got a really good vaccines, wide distribution, and of course, if someone hasn't gotten the vaccine, you are very susceptible to the Delta virus, and it's time. Come on, it's time. Get vaccinated.
And that comes up to something that the health district is doing differently now. Is that when folks are, when there's someone who's passed away, like how it's being reported now, if someone's been vaccinated or not vaccinated, it's being said if they were not vaccinated.
Right.
Can you talk about what went into that decision there? Because
so
I know some people are complaining that this has come across as vaccine shaming.
Yeah, I know.
Get a chance to kind of talk about that.
Yeah, so basically the state has asked us to start collecting all that data. So we started collecting it, and one of the principles that we've done is we've tried to be very open about our data and let people see what we're seeing. So, right now the easiest thing to do is looking at deaths, and now we're actually going to be looking at breakthrough cases. Looking at breakthrough cases. And as those breakthrough cases occur, we're going to say, X number are vaccinated, X number weren't vaccinated. The other thing we're going to be looking at is people who have had who have had COVID before, and looking at those breakthrough cases and looking at how many of them have been hospitalized as well. Some of the data that's coming out suggests that that people who have gotten the infection naturally have a pretty robust immune response, and it seems to protect them against getting sick or hospitalized again. So again, we're working on getting all of that information out there so everybody can see it, and so that way people can understand, what their risk is, and understand that this is something that's happening here in our community. right now, my opinion is that the people that are most at risk are the people who have not been infected and who have not been vaccinated. And so those are the folks that we're really the most concerned about. And all around the country, what we're seeing is the same phenomena, is that people are who are getting hospitalized, almost none of them have been vaccinated. There have been a few, and there's even been a few deaths among people that have been vaccinated. So, we want to be open and honest about what's going on here. But for the most part, most people that have not been, that have gotten sick and in the hospital have not been vaccinated.
About the information, is it just on deaths that's going to be reported, or are you going to add it to like hospitalizations?
We're going to add hospitalizations. We're going to add infections. But it takes a while to collate all this stuff. And I don't think we'll do it every day. I think we may do it once a week. The state's asking us to report all that to them once a week. So, we figured, well, we've got to collect it anyway. We've got to report it back to the state. We might as well just let people know what's going on.
Gotcha. And revisiting a little bit what you talked about earlier, Francis Garcia had this question: if elderly receive the Janssen vaccine, the Johnson & Johnson vaccine, do they need another type of vaccine because of the Delta virus? That's something you touched on just a little bit ago and earlier in the show. I wanted you to get a chance to address that again. Real fast.
We don't know the answer to that yet. And I think as things go, we'll get a better answer in the next 3-4 weeks about that. The one thing we can say is, particularly when we look at places that have not been highly vaccinated at all, here in Galveston County, we're at about over 50% of the people are being vaccinated. There's some counties in Missouri where it's like 15%. And that's where they're seeing the Delta variant just run rampant through there. But, we have parts of the county where people have not gotten vaccinated. And I worry about those places. I worry now we have this virus that is more infectious, that it kind of can get in these pockets of people that haven't been vaccinated and cause a lot of problems. One of the things to keep in mind is if you look at our data, our numbers are down with regard to new infections, but our hospitalization rate is staying pretty steady, and we're having a low 20s in terms of people being hospitalized, and that really hasn't changed much, and that's very disconcerting. So if you got the Janssen vaccine, going back to the original question, wait a little bit, and we'll probably be able to have a better answer for you probably sometime in mid to late July.
Dr. Philip Keiser, the local health authority for Galveston County, also the interim CEO of the Galveston County Health District, Coastal Health and Wellness, on with us as he does. We took a couple of weeks off, but he's back with us on a regular basis. And we are expanding this program now to talk about more of the health issues, not just COVID-19. That will always kind of lead off the show, but we're going to be talking about issues such as West Nile, how we're dealing with heat issues, and those things that may come up as well, because we don't want to forget the overall health effects there. Anything else before we wrap up here today, Dr. Keiser?
No, I'm just going to say what I always say: get vaccinated.
And get vaccinated, and also have a safe July 4th weekend. July 4th folks are going to be. It's our first major holiday since Memorial Day.
Yeah.
But this is the one folks get a little more crowded together because of the fireworks shows and the like. We want folks to be out there and be safe with that, and we'll have to hear more from folks along those lines as well. So, Philip, thanks a lot. Enjoy yourself for your 4th of July. Happy Independence Day weekend to you ahead of time. Are you going to be on the beach? You're going to stay out your home in Tiki? How's that going to work for you?
No, we're playing in a parade. We're playing in the 4th of July parade. So
we should follow you around, because he does, when you say play, by the way, he's in a band. Yeah, and it's always cool. You'll always notice if it's a parade that we're covering, he gets on camera one way or another on his and that's just what we do when we have him along the way there. So, Dr. Philip Keiser, thanks for coming on with us. We appreciate it. If you have questions or topics you'd like to discuss on the show outside of COVID-19 even, send us your questions at I-45 now, and we'll be more than glad to pass us along. Dr. Philip Keiser, thanks to John Phillip for joining us. And folks, thank you for joining us as well.
Hi, I'm Christina Garcia. I'm the Patient Services Manager at Coastal Health and Wellness. I want all Galveston County residents to know that the open enrollment for the healthcare insurance marketplace is now. At Coastal Health and Wellness, we understand the importance of having access to high quality health care. And we understand that the application process can sometimes be stressful, trying to figure out which plan is best for you and your family. So we have certified application counselors that are waiting to walk you through the process. There are 4 categories of plans to choose from, and our counselors will help you through the process. All the plans will cover essential health benefits, pre-existing conditions, as well as preventive care. So what do you need to know, Galveston County residents? The time to act is now. If you need assistance or if you have questions, call us. At Coastal Health and Wellness, we're here to help you.